Hi, it's Tom here from Running Physio. Wanted to come and talk to you today about a new paper that we've published recently with Gledhill and Dale Forsdyke, all about how we can enhance rehab adherence, which we know is really important for our patients because we can come up with the best rehab program ever, and if they don't do it, if it doesn't fit into their lifestyle and things, it's not going to be effective for you. So I wanted to talk about this topic and give you 4 simple strategies that you can bring into your practice to try and improve that rehab adherence and get better results with patients that you see. Now, you'll know if you watch my videos regularly that I'm very passionate about treating runners, and we've got a link in the title to the webinars all about treatment of various different common running injuries that you'll see to help runners. But this is a video that's going to have a lot of stuff that's applicable to non-runners, to all patients really. It's thinking about how can we work closely with them, team up with them to help them actually get the rehab done and get really good results. So we'll start by having a look at a little kind of conversation which started off this editorial for us that we often have in clinic. That goes a little bit like this. So the clinician, meets and greets the patient and says, "Hi there, how are you doing today?" And the patient says, "I'm good, thanks, not too bad." Clinician says, "That's great. Has the injury improved?" Because that's obviously what we want to know. And the patient then, knowing it hasn't, kind of dies a little bit inside and says, "No, not really." And the clinician said, oh, that's too bad. Have you been doing your rehab activities? And the patient then sheepishly admits, "Well, kind of, but not really. I've done a bit." And then the clinician also dies a bit inside as well. And I think this is a common experience we have where we've given the patient what we consider to be good rehab ideas, good strategies, and for some reason they haven't been able to do it. And the patient feels guilty. We wonder what's missing from the process, and we haven't really got them on board. So these strategies we're going to talk about are about trying to get them on board with this process to avoid having these difficult conversations, and hopefully then to lead to the kind of outcomes that the patients want and we want in clinic. Now, there's a nice line from this editorial which sums up a lot of what we're aiming for here, that patients have to be their own agent of change. We cannot do it for them. And that's something that's important for us to recognize. We aren't really there to tell them what to do and for them to go off and follow our instructions like the recipe book in a cookbook. We need to do a bit more than that. We need to help remove the barriers that are going to stop them doing what they want to do. We need to try and tap into their motivation as we do it. So let's talk about some of these 4 strategies. Strategy number 1 is really important. We want to form strong working relationships with our patients. And I think this starts from session 1, right at the beginning, of giving them the opportunity to tell you their story and really listening closely to that story. We want to provide clear, honest, and understandable information for the patient, and that will vary patient to patient in terms of what they will understand. But if you're confusing them and they don't really know what you're talking about, that's going to break down that relationship that you're trying to build. We want to commit to shared goals that we're working towards together. Having shared goals is a really good way of developing a relationship. And those goals have got to come from the patient, of course. They've got to motivate them. So you're working together to achieve those goals. And again, we should be doing that from session 1, really. Setting aside our own agenda and really thinking, how do we work towards this patient's particular goals that are important to them as an individual? And we also want to empower our patients, give them the information, help them to understand their injury so that they have the autonomy, because that's placing them in control, which is really important. You'll know as a person, beyond how you feel as a clinician or therapist, that you as a person want to feel in control of your situation and able to manage it. So that's important as part of this first step of building that strong relationship. Second key strategy is to maintain the social side of sport. Now, this is really important. Many sports come with a big social side, particularly my sport, running. We don't just run, we talk about it on Facebook and we chase each other around on Strava. There's a lot of social sides to many, many sports. So we want to keep people involved with the social side of the sport. That helps them to develop and maintain a good support network around them. And it helps to prevent isolation. So people aren't aren't then coming out of their sport and missing out on the social side of that. And we've had a good example of that in clinic. I work in a health and rackets club where we were treating a lady that had injured her calf playing tennis. And because of this injury, she'd stopped coming and playing tennis, but she'd also stopped coming in to have lunch with her friends, which is normally what she would do after the tennis. So not only had her sport stopped, but her social life had ground to a halt as well. And she was getting quite isolated as a result, didn't have that support network around her. So easy solution for her was to say, well, come in, have lunch with everyone, and we'll get you back to the tennis as quickly as you can. So keep that social side of things going, and actually maybe see if you can go a step beyond that with some patients. See if you can get them to do some rehab in that sports or training environment. So in team sports, for example, get people to stay involved with some aspects of their training, the bits that they can cope with whilst they're doing their rehab, so they still feel connected to the team. So that's point 2, maintain the social side of the sport. Point 3 is to support the patient's autonomy. Now, sometimes this can be quite difficult for us because our instinct is that we perhaps sometimes want to be driving the change, but we need to place them in control, and we need to be a bit careful not to micromanage the situation and place ourselves in control of the rehab. We need to hand them the reins, really. And this can be a bit of a balancing act between sometimes not giving enough information. For example, saying to someone, well, just get back into your sport, and leaving them to it, versus micromanaging that situation and making it overly complex and trying to control every single factor, which takes away their autonomy and leads to confusion. We need to make sure that they feel in control. And this involves listening to them and adapting their rehab accordingly. And we've had an example with that recently with a patient that we're seeing who's been working on some Achilles rehab for quite a while. Now, my preferred strategy for Achilles rehab in runners is we'll have a rehab day followed by a run day. And typically with them, we're going to have 3 rehab days and 3 run days a week with 1 day off rest and recovery. Now, that's in line with research, and it helps to prevent us loading the tendon too much on one day, but it's quite a lot of work. And it means that patients are committing to basically doing something 6 days a week, probably for upwards of 3 months. And that's quite hard. So we had a patient recently saying that they're finding that a bit difficult to maintain. They were losing motivation. And we need to listen to that and then work with them to find an option that they prefer. And what we found this athlete was happier to do was a slightly different approach, a 3-day cycle where we had a run day, followed by a rehab day, followed by a rest day, and repeating that 3-day cycle so they had more regular days off, but were still able to regularly include the rehab and the running. So we need to be a little bit flexible to help to keep the person on side. We need to be less rigid. We don't want to be there lecturing them. We want to support their autonomy and their choice to continue with the rehab. Final point then is to set goals with people. Very, very important because these goals can actually shape the rehab and actually have a big effect on what you need to work towards. Obviously, someone that's aiming to do, say, a park run is going to have different rehab needs to someone that wants to get back to elite level football. So we really need to know what those goals are. And it's good to have different types of goals. So there may be goals around rehab targets like restoring strength, range, or flexibility. There may be goals around return to sport. There may even be lifestyle goals around improving things like sleep or mental well-being. Or there may be performance goals, such as trying to work towards a particular time for someone's 5K or half marathon or marathon, for example. So we want to have those goals in place. And actually, again, as part of these shared goals, we want to make sure they come from the patient. And actually, when we're talking through these goals, it can be very motivating for the patient, for them to know that you have a plan for them, that you see them progressing towards where they want to be. And these are the stepping stones that they're going to take to get there, that they know that you're not just kind of winging it with them, that actually you've got a plan, a progressive plan that takes them from where they are now to where they want to be. And you've got set points that you're going to try and meet along the way with them. So 4 simple strategies that are going to help to improve rehab adherence and results for patients at UC. Just to recap those 4, number 1, we want to try and form strong relationships with our patients from session 1. Number 2, we want to maintain the social side of the sport wherever possible. Number 3, we want to really support the patient's autonomy and place them in control of their rehab and guide them through it. And number 4, we want to set goals that are important to the patient, that will motivate them and keep them on track, that will allow them to see their progress as they go through. Now, I'm going to be doing more of these Facebook Lives as we go into 2021, and I'd really love to hear from you. What would you like to know more about? Obviously, my special interest is running, but also I've done a lot of research and work in things like tendinopathy, strength and conditioning, bone stress injury, patellofemoral pain. I am a bit of a geek, so there's lots of areas that I'm interested in and I'm more than happy to talk to you about. So let me know in the comments, do you have any particular questions? Are there topics you'd like us to cover? Are there maybe case examples that you might like us to talk through? I also tend to try and recap on recent research in some of these videos to help keep you up to date. Are there any particular papers you'd like us to delve into for you? Because these videos are for you. So please let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like us to cover through these videos, and I'll look forward to discussing those as we go through. We're trying to do a video each week, typically on a Friday, where we'll delve into some of these topics for you. Okay, thank you very much for listening today. I look forward to reading your questions and things in the comments. And I'd just like to finish by saying Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you have a fantastic 2021. Fingers crossed it's going to be better than 2020, which I know has been difficult for everybody. But hopefully there's some light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of us. So I look forward to chatting with you more in 2021 and seeing things improve for everyone. Okay, thanks very much. Bye for now.